SEC meetings in Destin getting underway. Should the SEC vote to go to a 9-conference slate in 2026? Time to get the squad together.
You're talking ball with the SEC squad, sponsored by Game Time. From Alabama to Tennessee, from Georgia to Oklahoma, from Auburn to Texas, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming SEC weekend. It's the SEC squad, and we have a seat for you. Hurt feelings and thin skin are prohibited. Squad up. You're part of the SEC squad.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the SEC squad. Sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we get you ready for another week of the SEC offseason. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So welcome in our squad panel this week. We've got John Miller, host of Locked On Mizzou. We've got Jay Smith, host of Locked On Sooners. Chris Marler of Locked On Gamecocks joins us. I'm Chris Gordy from Locked On SEC. Gentlemen, welcome in. We are getting ever so closer to June, and that means ever so closer to the start of the college football season. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic, Chris. We are inching ever so closer, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's 100 days till it comes till the start of the season today.
Is it 100 today? Well, that's for week 1, right? Week 0, right. We're now at 93 days. But I do agree with you because week 0 doesn't actually count.
Yeah, there's no good game. I mean, it's is the Dublin game, and that's kind of it. Like, it's week 0 is a big fat dud. But nonetheless, here we are with the SEC. And guys, I posed the question. The SEC meetings are getting set to take place down in Destin, and one of the topics of debate is, will the SEC vote to go to a 9-game conference slate? And so I throw it out to you guys because the reports have come out that ESPN is willing to pay the money necessary to make it happen. So now it's on the conference. Where are you guys stand on this?
For me, it's all about the non-conference rivalries. And really, I guess me and Marler are going to be off timing again this week, but we'll get it together eventually, I promise. But speaking of the Locked On Gamecocks, to me, it's about, for example, Clemson against South Carolina. What is the status of those rivalries? Because to me, those are incredibly important annual rivalries. I don't think it's worth getting one extra SEC game if you're giving those up. But all things being equal, if we get to keep both, then yeah, give me that extra SEC game. That's just more entertaining football.
So I completely disagree because I think I'm so tired of hearing about the 8-game conference schedule the SEC plays versus the 9-game conference schedule of the Big Ten. And I will die on this hill. If you're going to sit here and tell me, well, we play 9 conference games, and one of those conference games is an 11 a.m. kickoff, a brunch time kickoff in front of 1,200 people at a high school stadium at Purdue or Northwestern, I don't care. Like the Mercer game that has somehow become like almost infamous with these SEC teams is become such a joke because the FCS versus that. When you're playing 8 games against what is arguably, I think there were 8 out of the top 10 teams last year at the end of the regular season for strength of schedule were from the SEC. So I think if you're going to make it more universally fair and you're going to have a universal schedule with 9-game conference schedule for the entire Power 4, then I better start seeing Big 10 teams, Big 12 teams, and ACC teams playing more other Power 4 non-conference games, because otherwise, like you said, those built-in conference or non-conference rivalries are going to end up going away.
The problem is that the Big Ten sees it similar to the way you do, that we play 9 games in conference, and our conference is really tough. It's, it's northern, it's old school football. We like to run the ball, and it's just physical, and it's all about the trenches, blah, 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 blah. When, to be truly honest, the biggest issue to me is the disadvantage of certain programs that unfortunately have rivals that are considered to be Power 4. Like South Carolina, you got Clemson every year. Clemson is actually really, really good. Missouri, it sounds like you and Kansas are starting to make that rivalry become more prominent. And Kansas has been on the rise. So you're going to have a consistent, bad, tough opponent every single year. Look at Florida. They got Florida State and Miami. And unfortunately, the U seems to be returning back to enough prominence to where they're a thorn in somebody's side. So to me, I like the idea of 9 games. But I think it'll be serve everybody better if every conference went to 8. You had 2 non-con games required be P4, and you build a relationship with other conferences. Either it's the ACC, and you have one of those games against the ACC versus the SEC, and the other one against the Big Ten and the SEC, something of that nature. Because you're gonna have to have a cupcake. The one thing that college football does not have that all the major sports have is preseasons. College basketball has preseason. They got preseason basketball tournaments where they go cook all these weak competitions. So in football, since you don't have a preseason, you kind of need the cupcake to get warmed up, get your body going, get those calluses built from all the hits you're going to take, because that gauntlet mid-season to the end is always tough. And it's better to have something in place to where you can at least get your team ramped.
I would say also, just real quick on that too, is like I love that idea. And if it's about television ratings, listen, I fully understand Greg Sankey trying to put more money into the pockets of all the programs in this conference. And if you have 4 teams locked in, sure, then maybe it makes sense to do what everyone else is doing. But it makes zero sense to be the preeminent conference in the country for 2 decades and then have this much of an overreach and try to do something to appease other people when you have dominated with this specific like blueprint for 2 decades. And I think the other part too is if it's going to be for TV ratings, then fine. Do what they do in basketball when you have the Big Ten ACC Challenge or the SEC Big 12 Challenge, and do something like how great would the theater be for TV if it's like, early in the offseason and you find out, hey, we're gonna draw a lottery ball or something like that and figure out where you have to go. Bama's going to Colorado, Texas is going to Ohio State, Georgia Tech's going out to Oregon. Like I would watch that. So go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, that's pretty much it. It makes no sense to me that like this is all coming and it's at the appeasement of other conferences they have been under the heel of the SEC for 2 decades. And all of a sudden, and listen, everyone else knows too, like the South Carolina Clemson thing is the best example, because it's like, sure, Ohio State, Michigan is a great way to close the year. But if Ohio State, just like they did last year, just like Indiana did last year, just like Nebraska did last year, if they're not playing another Power 4 non-conference opponent outside of their own conference games, then what's the point?
Well, let me just add real quick, Jay, before you go. Michigan, I bring this up all the time. Michigan 2 years ago, remember they won the national championship? Their 3 non-conference games that year were East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. Didn't even try to test themselves. They didn't even play a ranked opponent until like week 11. So again, it's just not the biggest problem with this, guys, is schedule inequity and conference inequity. Not everybody plays on a level playing field. This isn't the NFL where the Dolphins' schedule is as tough as the Jaguars and vice versa. Like it's a huge schedule inequity in these conferences, and this ties into the Urban Meyer quote. If you guys saw this week, saying that the Big Ten has passed the SEC at the upper part. I'm going, what upper part? Ohio State and Michigan won titles. Great. Is Indiana knocking on the door to a title? Let me know when Penn State wins one, because James Franklin has never gotten there. So, I just think it's hyperbolic, and we're overreacting to 2 one-offs of Michigan, Ohio State winning titles.
Before you go, John, I want to add to what Chris said and give you. Let me just add more to that. Why don't we do similar to the NFL model, where if you're at the top, you play a first place type schedule. So you kind of break it up in half. You go 8-8, and they're required to play each other in the top 8 of each other. Then the bottom 8, let them play against each other. And like you said, you pull those out at the end of the season to determine who, and make it a regular season thing. Don't even make it go through the playoffs. Like, as soon as the regular season's over, commissioners can get together. They can make those picks, boom, boom, boom. And this is where you're traveling to next year.
Yeah.
Then everyone can start, because we always wait to find out when our conference schedule is until April anyway. You can make it a whole show to where you see who's going to be playing against each other come the next year, who your non-conference games are, and that would be fun. Like you said, I'm totally tuning in to Florida going to Oregon. I will gladly watch Michigan go up against South Carolina. Why? Because I want to see some sort of crazy action there. So if you do it that way, that's probably the next step you can do, is go like the NFL model with your P4s and make them play each other on a regular basis.
I think you guys make a lot of brilliant points, as per usual. I like the NFL scheduling idea. And really, my preference here isn't really about fairness or any type of equity battle between the Big Ten and the SEC, for example. It's also about expansion, too. I think that's something else to point out here. Back in 2012, when the SEC expanded for the first time in several years, adding Texas A&M and Missouri, then obviously Oklahoma and Texas were added. Well, you went from 12 to 16. That's an addition of 33% more teams. You've still stayed, though, at that 8-team schedule. So whether that's the right move or not, there certainly is a big downside there of it seems like there's a lot of teams in this conference from Missouri fans' perspective. Get used to it, by the way, Jay, that you feel like you're barely not even in the same football conference with because you don't see them except every 6 or 7 years. Yep. And it seems like that's actually getting worse, not better, with the plans in the future. Nobody's really addressing that, and I don't think that's a great outcome.
I mean, as a longstanding member of the SEC, we understand how terrible it is that you don't get to see certain opponents but once every 15 years. It's pretty disrespectful, and it takes away from some of the allure of it. But no, you're 100% right. I mean, we saw that in the Big 12, at one point when the conference was bigger, but then now they made it to where everybody played each other after the team, some teams deflected off. And then once the conference got bigger, it got back to that where there was a chance a lot of those Big 12 teams are not going to see each other, but once every 8 years. And so I see the SEC now is trying to do every 2 years flip-flop schedules and stuff, and that's going to be imbalanced too. Again, the biggest problem is these non-conference games, which, in a lot of situations for some, Florida's always going to have the hardest schedule because Florida State, either good or bad, they're always going to be some sort of a challenge. They're going to bounce back at some point. Same thing with Miami, same thing with Clemson. Kansas will be up and down or whatnot, but it's so much better. It would be so much better if you force the conferences to have some sort of interconference type play. It's time to do that. Stop allowing every non-conference game to be negotiated. Do a home and home series and call it a day.
Well, let's pause it right there real quick, guys. I do think we will see, if we go to 9 games, I think we're going to say goodbye to Clemson, South Carolina. I think we're going to say goodbye to Kentucky, Louisville, because there's no reason for, Shane Beamer is going to go, why would I play that? It's right. Even harder on myself to get to 9-10 wins. When we return, more on this, more on the meetings in Destin, and pose the question, any other changes you think the conference should change or adopt? More ball squad talking after this. Hey, more with the SEC squad in just a second, but I want to remind you guys the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night we've got some highlight-worthy performances going on, some big shifts in momentum, some can't-miss moments. And look, whether it's game-winning shot or just a breakout player, an emerging MVP superstar, there's no better time to get in on that action, and you can do so with our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is going to make it easy for you guys to stay in the game before tip-off, live, in-game, whatever it is, from player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. You've got more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And, of course, we would tell you guys a lot of those college football lines are up there already for next season. Week 1, you want to get in on some of those early lines, they got it up there for you. LSU, Clemson, you can get in on that. You want to get in on any of those Week 1 games, they got them there for you. Alabama, Florida State, they got it for you there at FanDuel. And, of course, all the other prop bets and things like that available throughout the college football season as well, from the Heisman to championship odds, who's going to make the playoff, all that in addition to all the NBA action going on right now. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. SEC squad rolling along here, and yeah, I spoke like Yoda there for a second. Guys, the SEC meetings in Destin, all the ADs or head coaches down there. I want to pose a question: any other changes you think that the conference should be discussing or adopting? And look, obviously the big rule that kind of came out last year on the fake penalty, or rather fake injury penalty that they're kind of adopting. Are there any other big pictures? If you had a voice in the room, is there anything you would bring up to the ADs and coaches about something you'd like to see changed?
I'd say the kickoff. To me, the kickoff has just become the most utterly boring and inconsequential play in the sport, and it used to be one of the most exciting ones. I understand that there are obvious injury concerns here. Hey, let's address that. I'd just like there to be some type of special teams play that decides field position, and it's not just so automatic. And say what you will about what the NFL did last season. I don't think that's a perfect solution. I think it was at least slightly better than the, 80% touchback rate, I should say, that we saw at times. But that's just me.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind going back to 2020, and I want a female kicker on every team, for one, because I want to see Clay Travis lose his mind. And then two, no, I'm kidding. I think but the one thing I would like to see more than anything, and this is going to shock you as a South Carolina fan and South Carolina podcast host, I would love for the first time in seemingly any sport, accountability or some sort of universal help and consistency with officiating. It is so ridiculous from week to week. Here's the thing. You have put so much money in, there's so much money to be made in this league. And the amount of money each school, each institution is not only making, but also spending. You are talking about millions and millions of dollars on top of the livelihood and job security of coaches, other assistant coaches and all these other people. There's so much impact that these games have now. There's no reason for us to not have professional referees where that is their entire job. They have a universal understanding of this is a foul, this is not, this is targeting, this is not. Because from a week in to week out basis, you cannot have so many games that have such a huge impact on the national landscape being dictated by, oh, yeah, that was my bad. Nussmeier? No, that was, that might have been a tough call to throw away that pick six, and it cost South Carolina a shot in the playoff. And listen, here's the thing, too. That's the main thing you say. There's the main thing you say to Greg Sankey is if you want to cry about not having a fourth team into the playoff last year, but you got no one to blame but yourself, because that wouldn't have happened if that South Carolina LSU outcome doesn't go that way. Can
someone tell me, is the targeting rule in the room with us now? Because it really feels like there's no such thing as legitimately what target. We have no concept of what it actually is. And that's probably the thing that infuriates me the most, is because most of these calls are just random. They're not even human error calls, not even human judgment calls. There's no true criteria that's actually being leveraged. I watched a dude drop his head, hit somebody in the chest, and they said, nope, that is not a targeting. I'm like, but what? You said crown of the helmet. Okay. But if I hit them at the side of my helmet to their helmet, they're going to call targeting. But wait, that's not a crown. There's no it's not, as incidental contact after they hit chest to chest. It doesn't make sense. So I would like to know if they can find a way to just hammer out truly what that rule is and say, this is what we're going to live by. And it's not going to be all these ridiculous judgment calls. If there's helmet to helmet contact and it's the helmet first before any other body part, we're going to call it. I wouldn't lose my mind at that point. But you know what? Fair. They should look up a little bit when they do it. But hey, I'm still trying to find it. Y'all just tell me if you see it show up and walk in the room in a minute.
Do you guys think we'll see Lane Kiffin telling players to get down? I mean, do we think that that's going to go away?
That, to me, the easiest solution to that is to make the player sit the entire possession. Just the entire drive. If you are on a drive and a player falls, they're gone for the entire drive.
Here's my problem with that, Jay. What if these games in September are 100 degrees outside? What if a player legitimately had a cramp?
And I totally understand that. They're out for the entire drive. It just makes it
the best defensive player for the entire drive because he got a cramp on the first play of the game.
Yep. Hey, some collateral damage is going to happen.
Pickle juice all around.
Right. I mean, that there's going to be hot like that here in September. You better be hydrating like crazy and doing whatever you need to do to be as close as possible. But to me, there's no true solution because legally, and not to throw law into this, but you can't you can't tell a kid if he is or not. Like you said, someone can have a legitimate cramp, some cannot have a legitimate cramp. The easy thing is that if they do have that, let them sit for the drive. If they're cramping like that, they're going to cramp again in 3 plays. Let them get hydrated for a couple of minutes anyway.
Give
them some pickle juice.
That's the main thing too. If you're cramping up that poorly, you're not going to come right back into the game. My thing is, it's when you see Walter Nolan laying on the ground like he's reading a bedtime story, and then next thing you know, he's sprinting back onto the field 2 plays later. That part is where you have a problem. So I think they're going to find way. Listen, coaches have found ways to bend the rules for years, and Lane Kiffin is great at it. And I'm sure it's not just him. It's just they did it more than anyone else. I think you'll see some. I think at the very least, Gordy, you will see some very much less obvious things outside of go down, and then just somebody collapsing.
Oh, there's gonna be a keyword, right? Because they said that we're gonna be watching this. Okay, bubble gum. Someone yells bubble gum, drop to the ground.
Yeah, I think the good thing, at least with this rule, is it isn't going to affect guys who are legitimately injured. Right. That would be my concern. I think we all want to get this out of the game, but not at the expense of, completely unfairly, I guess, punishing legitimate injuries. At least Jay's plan would be a fair way of going about it. Yeah. And I'll say I agree with both of you guys in terms of, hey, let's spend more money on the officiating infrastructure for the love of God, and also the targeting rule for sure. I'll just point out, I think in both of those situations, then instant replay allows the league office a complete cop-out, especially when it comes to spending money on officials, because they can just say, oh, well, we basically replay every single snap anyway. And I don't think really the league minds slowing the game down a little bit. That's just more commercials that they can sell. If the game goes 3.5, 4 hours, well, who cares? Most of the fans aren't complaining right now.
One other thing I'd like to add to that rule on the injuries, if you're right by your sideline and you're hurt, allow people to pull him the 3 feet out of bounds so they
roll him out of bounds.
Like, those are the ones that kill me. I'm like, he's right there. Just get him off the field. Let's continue the play. Let's go.
Nothing makes me feel more like a boomer than yelling at my team, roll his blank off the field. Like it's every game.
We're getting older. Hey, look, I just want to see Shane Beamer and Brett Bielema yell at each other more. That's all I want.
Cage match.
Ooh, yeah. We all want that.
All right. When we return, I got some SEC quick hitters for you guys. Is Hugh Freeze lowering the bar at Auburn? We'll talk about that next. SEC squad rolling along here, and guys, got some quick hitters for you, some news from the past week around the conference. And first off, I start with Auburn. Hugh Freeze speaking at a golf tournament several days ago and was asked about expectations and said that, look, our goal is to make a bowl game this year. Is Hugh Freeze tempering those expectations when he was hired at Auburn, when all the hopes were national championship talk? Now he's saying, look, I know the expectations is to make a bowl game. Really?
Man, Hugh Freeze at a golf tournament? Man, blow me over with a feather. I'd say maybe he's lowering expectations to where he's realistically putting them right now, sadly, because maybe a little bit less golf and a little bit more recruiting and coaching, Hugh. That would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers to the cart girl that was out there that day, for one. Two, I will also say Hugh Freeze putting his foot in his mouth, not a huge surprise. I think Auburn is actually going to be very good this year, or at least much better than they were the last couple of years. But here's the thing, man. Like
Auburn fans, record, this is like the fourth straight year Marler has made that prediction.
That is true. Yeah, that is very true. And I've only been dating this Auburn grad for a year and a half, so it's not because of that. No, but here's the thing. I do think they're going to be better. The thing that would be shocking to me, like all the Auburn fans that were like kind of like not clutching pearls, but like kind of up in arms over this, like, I don't know if you guys have read the Opelika News or watched the TV the last 4 years, but you haven't made a bowl game. Like I just turned 39. Alabama has beaten them 5 times in a row. That's the longest streak in my entire lifetime. You are in the pits of like of what this program has become, and you may not be like Gene Chizik 2012 bad, but you haven't had a winning season in 4 years, and you haven't beaten Bama in 5, and you're going into a season with Hugh Freeze, who, by the way, has not exactly outperformed Brian Harsin, who you ran off as fast as you could. So like it just feels like it's yet another, I hate to say it, I'll whisper it so I don't get in trouble with the misses in the other room, but it feels like yet more delusion from the Auburn fan base, which is a tale as old as time.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see that they expect this much of a dramatic change, especially in a quarterback room. To me, that feels like it's got a lot of questions that we're waiting to see happen. I no shade to Jackson Arnold, but it did not look like he was actually comfortable playing quarterback at all. Actually, a lot of shade. Besides, right, you know me, John. Thank you, John. I really appreciate you actually calling me out. But no, on a serious note, we've watched Hugh Freeze with quarterbacks. We kind of watched how things kind of, go backwards. I mean, Thorne went backwards going to Auburn underneath him. He was a 3,000-yard passer at Michigan State. And I was like, yeah, he's going to do some damn. No, he's going to go backwards every year. And when your play calling is built to where, you at the end of games, you don't like running clock. You want to continue to throw the ball with a guy that's very much known for throwing turnovers or having turnovers. What sense does it make? And you don't have, you don't have Hunter back there as your bell cow. You're still trying to figure that portion out as well. The weapons are there. They've got a lot of offensive line veteran savviness there, which is good. The defense should be solid. They're always solid on defense, but am I supposed to be scared of Ashton Daniels or Jackson Arnold right now? Deuce Knight, I am terrified of him at game 9 or 10. It's a true freshman, but that's about it.
I think Arnold's going to be much better, and I'm not saying this to throw shade at you, Jay, but
fair, very fair.
That Oklahoma offensive line was the worst in the FBS, giving up 50 sacks. They had not given up more than 32 in a season, an average around 26 per season allowed in their 9 previous years in the Big 12, and they come to the SEC year 1. Very tough start, and then they have all the injuries at receiver. So the increase that he is going to have in talent around him at the receiver position especially is going to be night and day. So I think he could end up living up to his expectations. What you said, though, about the play calling is the best point that anyone's made so far, and that is the fact that, listen, Peyton Thorne was never going to be a world beater, but you went out and got him, and you also still had Jarquez Hunter. He was your safety net you had in your backfield. There were 2 times in 46 starts that Jarquez Hunter had more than 20 carries. In those 2 games, he averaged over 210 yards, had 4 touchdowns, and they won both games. He was phenomenal. So if you're telling me that you're openly disagreeing with everything Peyton Thorne is doing, how he's performing, you bench him and then you have to put him back in, why do you see listen, if you have a peanut allergy, don't eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, Hugh. If you don't like Peyton Thorne, why are you still going back to the well over and over and over again with this guy?
I love when Marler actually does some research and brings some stats to the table. It's
that's every week.
He's done his homework.
Every week.
I'm on here once every 3 months, so I get a lot of homework in between shows.
Another quick hitter for you guys. Keelan DeBoer asked last week about his starting quarterback spot. He said Ty Simpson is currently the starter if they had to go play a game right now. So assuming he stays healthy, I ask you, will Ty Simpson be the starter the final week of the season for Alabama? In other words, will he be the starter all year long for Bama?
I feel like Marler should go first. I don't know.
I'll go first. I think it's so fascinating to watch because if you're a Bama fan, you do not want Keelan Russell necessarily being the starter unless he deserves to be the starter. This has to play out. Not has to, but you want it to play out just like 2020 if you're Alabama. You want Mac Jones as your starter after several years on the bench and a couple of spot starts or whatever, and then Bryce Young coming in as at the time the highest ranked recruit in the history of the program, which now that's Keelan Russell. He's the highest ranked recruit in the history of the program. You want him to sit a year and hopefully stay and then develop and then next year be the guy. The terrifying, and I don't use that word lightly, terrifying part of that entire situation, if you're Alabama, in this day and age, the NIL era, giving a kid, which you would have to assume several $1 million and hoping he will sit for a year, be happy enough to stay, that's tough. That's a tough situation to be in. So you have to wonder if DeBoer makes the right decision and sticks with him if there's any unsettling going during that season if they lose a couple games.
I think that's such a great point. I really do, because in the past I would have my instincts were, it'll probably just be Ty Simpson, right? But boy, when you lay it out there like that, that's a really good point, Marler, because I think that does, especially considering Keelan DeBoer is under a relatively high amount of pressure for being a second-year coach. You want to keep that guy around. I think at the very least, Russell is going to see a series here or two, I would think. But I still think probably smart money is on Simpson maybe starting the last game of the season. But man, that's a really interesting situation, more so than I even realized until just now.
Yeah, it is. It really is intriguing when you look at it that way. I'm kind of curious to what Russell's going to be down the line. Now, I can totally see him taking the job late in the season, but DeBoer kind of needs Simpson to be really good all year and try to push for a playoff berth, because we're talking Bama fans here. Sorry, 9 wins ain't enough. Anything under 11, that seat gonna get hot.
To me, we're spending too much time talking about the quarterback. To me, it's can they get back to running the football? Jam Miller, Young, that's what they've got to have that complement. It was missing last year.
The scary part too is that that offensive line, you look at it on paper, man, you had 4 and 5 stars everywhere. You got guys that have left Alabama that are now, I think you got 1 or 2, one's at Nebraska. Elijah Pritchett is gone. that are projected potentially in the first round. You just had, I'm drawing a blank on Tyler Booker, who was the left guard, who was a number 12 overall pick. You look at Caden Proctor, former 5-star, who's projected to go in the top 5 next year. Why were there so many issues? Why did you have so many issues running the football? And then you look at when it mattered most, Oklahoma could not run the football. Then you look at what they did against Tennessee. They threw the ball 49 times. When has that ever been a recipe for success with Jalen Milroe? So I think you're right. They have got to get back to running the football. The good news for Keelan DeBoer is that for the first time in his career, he is going to have an absolutely elite defense on the other side of the ball. So he is not going to have to put up 30 points a game to go get wins, even though last year he didn't have to do that either, and he still kind of failed to do it a couple times.
Yeah, that's the funny part.
Ryan Grubb being there is certainly going to help. We got a minute left in the show, guys, so I saw our buddy Corey Burton wants to jump in.
This
so
guy.
Corey,
Hey, we got a minute left, so
I'll give you the last 60 seconds to voice anything you want, from Hugh Freeze lowering the bar, Keelan DeBoer stumping for Ty Simpson, the SEC going to 9 games in the conference, possibly. The floor is yours.
Hey, I love the 9-game schedule, man. If you want to be the best, you got to play the best, and it's all for the fans. I'm all for it. Keelan DeBoer lowering the bar for Ty Simpson. Is that what we're talking about here?
Kind of combined them, but sure.
Yeah. So all of that. I think Ty Simpson's going to be good. Ryan Grubb has got a good plan with them. I think he fits their scheme. And then what else? What was it? Hugh Freeze? Yeah. He said he's got to get to a bowl game, which that's lowering the bar.
That wasn't the Hugh Freeze topic.
Oh.
No, it was.
Yeah,
It definitely was.
Yeah. So all of that. And did you guys see the top 136 quarterbacks ESPN.com ranked?
They did top 136.
God. Who was one?
Who was one?
Arch.
I think it. No, it wasn't Arch.
How are you going to bring that up? You don't even know who was one.
Because I focused on tier 3 because Diego Fabio was in tier 3.
Y'all see that 4th Star Wars movie? I didn't, but I heard it was.
No, here's the list. Here was number 1. Number 1 was Cade Klubnik.
He is
Checks
the
out.
best quarterback in the country coming back, in my opinion. I hate to say that. Like, stats wise.
Between him and Nussmeyer is one of those two.
Yeah.
I was going to say maybe Nussmeyer.
Nuss, and
They
then
put
Mateer.
Mateer in tier 1.
Yeah,
Wow.
and Drew Aller
I
and
see what you
Lenore
did there.
Sellers. Those are the tier 1s.
Color me.
Sellers
I'm
in there.
not buying the stock yet on Drew Aller. I need to see more. I'm not.
You need to see more of him going into year 3 as a starter, doing the same crap he's done for 2 straight years. Also, dude, he was year 1. He was 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and really, really good. Just not when it mattered most. And then last year he was fine for most of the year. But like this idea that Penn State is all of a sudden going to wake up and be pretty. Listen, I'm going to a wedding this weekend. I had 8 months to lose the weight, and I never did. I'm hoping tomorrow I wake up and I'm night and day different. But that's the same type of mentality people are having towards Drew Aller. And you hear how dumb it sounds when I say it? That's how dumb it sounds when you talk about Drew Aller.
Wait, you can't just instantly lose weight overnight?
Just say I look pretty, and that's it. Because just fishing for
pretty.
compliments here. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What's the shot you can take? You can inject that now. You can
Ozempic?
one of those. Manjaro, something like that.
I've just been getting Chick-fil-A biscuits in the morning, medium rare, so I can just
Ninjago?
kind of cut. Just you know what I mean?
That's the best way. Yeah, medium rare chicken biscuits.
All right, gents, it's been good. This has been an all-new edition of the SEC Squad. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen. And, hey, we'll be covering your favorite SEC team all throughout the offseason as we get you ready for another SEC season. I'll have you covered with the entire conference every day with Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We'll talk to you guys next